Coming up, a company with a focus on electric vehicles, and we're not talking about cars. We'll break down how a 100-year-old battery maker is helping to electrify fleet vehicles like ships and trains after the break.
Welcome back to Cheddar News. A report from UK Research and Innovation found that the shipping industry makes up at least 2.5% of the world's total CO2 emissions. It's a problem that energy solutions company Leclanché is trying to solve. Founded in 1909, the company has been developing and producing batteries for more than 100 years now. And today, its lithium-ion battery is used to electrify not just ships, but also railroad locomotives, trucks, and specialty vehicles. Here now to discuss is the Chief Technology and Industrial Officer of Leclanche, Pierre Blanc. Pierre, welcome to the show. Most people are familiar with the automotive EV market, but can you talk to us about what's happening with the fleet EV space, which involves trucks, trains, buses, and even boats?
First of all, hello. Thank you very much for having me on your show. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are far more aware of the EV market, passenger cars, because it's more visible. It's more accessible, and it has a direct impact on their decisions. Now, the heavy-duty applications, which cover marine, railway, freight transport, do contribute substantially to the CO2 emissions, and have a whole set of different requirements when it comes to electrification. First of all, they're used far more than a car. A passenger car is parked most of the time, whereas a vessel will be sailing. A train is running most of the day. So a different set of requirements requiring slightly different technologies, but contributing in the same way to reducing the overall CO2 emissions.
How large, Pierre, is the overall fleet electrification market? Because this isn't something I knew about until I was researching this interview. Is the marine ship EV market a big component of the overall fleet electrification market?
So the market is growing. I'd say it's still quite a bit behind the EV market. EV market started several years ago. There's been a slight delay in the growth of the marine and railway market. It's foreseen to grow tenfold over the next 7 to 8 years to over 100 gigawatt hours, to put in capacity terms, 100 gigawatt hours per year. It's driven partially by changing regulations. A lot of ports are imposing zero emission or reduced emission in port areas, which is leading either to full electrification for short haul vessels or hybridization for vessels that have to do longer trips and still rely on some conventional powertrain.
I want to go back to something you just said, the pollution that comes from ships. How does that compare to cars? I want to make sure I heard right. You're saying ships actually cause more pollution because cars are parked the majority of the time? I just want to reiterate.
So ships will operate longer periods of time. A ship will typically operate 18, 20 hours a day, whereas a car will be used maybe 1 hour a day. So a big difference in terms of utilization. Another difference is that when you're looking at ships, and you'll have a variety of ships, but ships tend to use cheaper fuel, heavier fuel, which is more polluting as well. So you have these two aspects which are contributing to increasing the impact of shipping industry on the carbon footprint. One coming from the fuel, the cost of the fuel that they use, and they use low-grade fuels, and the other one is operating much longer time.
What work is Leclanche doing to make the marine industry more sustainable, and are there any projects planned in North America?
So, we are a battery company, so we're not making the ships, but we work very closely with the ship manufacturers, with the shipyards and the ship owners in electrifying. We have a number of projects running, vessels running, which are either fully electrified, so 100% electric, and quite a substantial number which are hybrid, which are basically put into the category of zero emission in port. So as soon as they get into the vicinity of a port, they go into a zero emission. The big focus or the big pressure on doing this has been originated in Europe, and mainly in Northern Europe, Scandinavian region, where there's a lot of ferry and they're very conscious on the environmental impact. But now we have started delivering the first ferries to North America, in particular to Canada, Ontario Lake, where the ferries are on site now, and they'll be entering operation in the coming months. And these will be full electric vessels.
As you well,
no more emissions.
No more emissions, which is certainly a good sign. Like you well know, Pierre, a wide range of industries continue to be impacted by supply chain issues. Can electrifying these fleet vehicles help when it comes to that, just about the supply chain?
It can help to a certain extent. Obviously, the battery industry is also submitted to supply chain issues right now. Things are starting to recover, but there will be still, I'd say, for the coming 12 months, probably there will still be some difficulties. But one of the big pushes to be less reliant on the supply chain, to have more local ability to supply the energy, to supply the medium for storing it, and not rely on gas or fuel coming from countries which, where supply can be cut from one day to the next or reduced and affect your ability to ship things around. So it is contributing heavily to a more local economy.
The International Maritime Association has set a target to cut shipping industry emissions by 50% by 2050. That's a lofty number, and 2050, especially when it comes to climate change, will be here before we know it. What has to happen in order for this to ultimately be achieved, Pierre?
So to meet those targets, there will be a number of things that are required. And shipping, as I said, shipping can be categorized into short haul, long haul, medium haul shipping. The variety of technologies needed to decarbonize the different applications is going to be different when you're looking at the short haul, which could be, and most oftenly is, pure battery. When you go to long haul, the battery is not going to be the sole solution. It's going to be combined with alternative solutions. You might have clean gas, natural gas as medium for the generators. You might have fuel cell technologies, but you are going to see a combination of different technologies needing to come together in order to address the targets that have been put forward, which are relatively ambitious targets.
Pierre, if I can ask you one more question before you go. Other than e-transport, we know Leclanche's other business unites, including stationary storage solutions, battery systems, like you mentioned. What is the work your company is doing in those specific areas away from e-transport?
So when you look at e-transport, it's part of an overall ecosystem. I'll give you the example of the ferries that are being installed, that put into operation in Canada. These ferries need to be charged. The infrastructure for charging is not powerful enough to charge these batteries. These are large batteries which require a lot of power. So we're also having to add storage facilities onshore that are going to regulate the power and allow for a fast charge of these ferries. So it's extending beyond the vehicle, put it like that, and it's going to the grid, it's going to the infrastructure. It's really expanding the ecosystem to manage these low carbon footprint technologies and integrate them into the much broader ecosystem, which is encompassing the grid, the generation. How do you integrate as much renewable energy? Again, a battery is as clean as the energy that's used to charge it. So you need to use clean energy charging it if you want to have a meaningful impact. And so all of this needs to come together, and all of this will require not just addressing the transport side, but also the stationary side, the grid side, and the renewable energy integration.
Well, it is so great to talk to you, Pierre. This is such a fascinating aspect of climate. Pierre Blanc, Chief Technology and Industrial Officer for Leclanché. Thank you so much again, Pierre.